This elephant wasn't mad. It had learned how to kill. In the jungles of Sundarbans that night, two kings stood face to face, and in the end, only one would walk away alive. I was sitting on a wooden platform high in a tree, watching it all. One wrong shot, and I could be the next prey. I kept telling myself that turning back would be the wiser choice, but deep down, I knew there was no retreat now. The Sundarbans is no ordinary forest. It is a place where humans are not guests, but prey. Every branch, every bush, every towering tree seemed to testify to danger. And there I was, trying to balance my life and my mission in the middle of it all. The night had grown deep. A dim lantern flickered inside the rest house, while the sounds drifting in from outside carried an unnamed fear. At times, a distant animal's scream pierced the silence. At others, there was the heavy splash of something massive moving through water. Sometimes, it even felt as though something in the darkness was breathing. I prayed to Allah to grant me success in this mission and return me safely home. Yet even after praying, sleep refused to come. I lay awake for hours, listening to the terrifying calls of Sundarbans predators, planning the next day in my mind. Every passing moment felt heavier. The faint jungle glow seemed to amplify my fear, and I found myself alert at every minor sound, straining my ears into the darkness. Just before dawn, finally, sleep claimed me. When I woke early in the morning, my body felt strangely burdened. I changed clothes, had a light breakfast, and carefully checked my .510 extra-long rifle. As soon as its weight settled on my shoulder, I knew this would not be an ordinary day. Osmatullah was trembling as he watched me prepare. Fear, helplessness, and disbelief were written across his face. As I turned to leave, I noticed his eyes were moist. In a low voice, he recited verses from the Quran and raised his hands in prayer. May Allah grant you success and bring you back safely. Outside the rest house, a crowd had gathered. Their expressions were strange, like people assembled for a funeral. Some looked frightened, some resentful, and others carried that silent look seen only on faces standing too close to death. A few men stepped forward and described the area where the rogue elephant had often been seen. Each story differed, but every conclusion was the same: danger and death. Piecing together their accounts, I estimated that the elephant lived about 12 miles from the rest house, deep within dense bamboo forest. The easiest route would be to travel 15 miles by boat along the river, then disembark on the far bank and walk another mile on foot. Abdullah Manji, the boatman, agreed to take me there without payment. 2 young men volunteered to accompany him, and so our small party of 4 set off by boat. Along the riverbank stretched a strange and captivating sight, beautiful yet deadly. On both sides, lush mangroves and towering trees rose high, filled with crows, kites, and vultures. Below, the river lapped against the branches, and from somewhere distant came the cry of an unseen creature. The Sundarbans stood in its full splendor. In the distance, spotted deer grazed calmly. Crocodiles lay basking along the muddy banks, half asleep in the sun. At the faint sound of our boat, they would lift their heads for a moment to glance at us, then sink back into lazy stillness. After 2 hours, we reached the point where my true journey would begin. Abdullah remained silent for a long time. As I stepped off the boat, he finally spoke. "Sir, if you return by evening, we will still be here." I thanked him, gripped my rifle firmly, recited Ayat al-Kursi, and stepped into the jungle. Within a few steps, the jungle swallowed me whole. Darkness spread beneath the cover of trees. Noise hid within silence. Death seemed possible at every turn. I focused on every faint sound, scanning my surroundings constantly. Every snapping twig, every rustling leaf forced my heart to pound harder. In the stillness, I heard the sound of breathing. Then, somewhere in the distance, leaves began to shudder. It felt as though the jungle was watching my every move, as if unseen eyes tracked me from the shadows. Every step was a struggle between life and death. I knew this was only the beginning. The path ahead would be darker, more terrifying, more mysterious. Behind every bush, beneath every shadow, the fear of death lingered. Yet I also knew that if I turned back now, the mission would fail, and I would remain powerless before that murderous elephant. This was only the first day, and the Sundarbans had already revealed its blood-stained brilliance, silent, mysterious, forever weaving threads of death. The sun was sending out its final rays as I moved deeper into the dense jungle. With every step, the rustling of grass, the snap of branches, and distant piercing cries made my heartbeat race faster. The scent of damp earth and the whisper of water in the air carried with them a strange, dancing fear. I knew there was no turning back now. If the elephant or any other predator caught my scent, my scream would vanish into the jungle's silence, unheard by anyone. In the first few miles, I faced several small but terrifying moments. Snakes would lift their heads from between tree roots, watching from concealment. At times, the gleaming eyes of a crocodile hidden in soft mud stared straight at me. For a moment, it felt as if the jungle had noted my every movement and tightened its grip around me. Near midday, while the sun still gave a little light, a large snake suddenly appeared in my path. Its body was long, thin, and coiled, its eyes red and menacing. I immediately stepped back and raised my rifle, but I knew firing a shot would alert every creature in the forest, including the elephant. The snake lifted its narrow neck, stared at me for a tense second, then, with a sharp hiss, lunged forward and disappeared into the grass. My heart pounded wildly, but I had no choice except to move on. The wind shifted within the jungle. With each passing moment, the mist grew thicker. From somewhere in the distance came the low, grumbling growl of a tiger. I knew the presence of a tiger meant danger, yet crossing its territory was necessary if I wanted to reach the elephant. I gripped my rifle tightly, my eyes fixed on the slightest movement. As I approached a dense tree, a tiger suddenly emerged in front of me. We stood barely 10 yards apart. The fire in its eyes and the power in its claws sent a chill through my body. I stepped back, pressing myself against the tree trunk, and raised my gun. But in a flash, the tiger leapt powerfully and vanished into the tall grass. My pulse surged, sweat dripped down my face, and everything around me seemed to whisper that this was only the beginning. I retreated slightly and sat in a small clearing between the trees. From my bag, I took out some food and drank a few sips of water, trying to steady my nerves. But every faint sound made my heart jump again. The wind weaving through branches, the distant movement of some unseen animal, the faint splash from water nearby, all made me feel that the jungle was alive and watching me. After noon, even the small birds began chirping nervously and hiding among the branches. Every twig, every leaf, every shifting shadow testified to danger. I kept my rifle firm on my shoulder and moved forward slowly. A few miles later, I reached an open patch where small deer and other wild animals grazed in the grass. For a brief moment, the sight brought a sense of calm. But somewhere in the stillness, the distant trumpet of an elephant or the low growl of a tiger would pull me back to reality. I knew these peaceful moments were deceptive. The real danger had yet to reveal itself. As night approached, I crossed a narrow river. The cool water brushed against my legs, and even its gentle flow echoed eerily in the jungle's heavy silence. Suddenly, a faint trumpet sounded from across the river. My heart nearly stopped. I hid behind a tree, trying to determine whether it was the elephant or something else. The air felt thick with moisture and fear, and my pulse beat so loudly it seemed to thunder in my ears. I decided to move forward, but with every step, it felt as if the jungle itself was testing me. Hidden dangers behind every bush, the subtle sway of branches, distant cries piercing the darkness, all fed my fear. I knew the elephant was somewhere ahead, and that this deadly creature could appear at any moment.
Night had fallen completely. I climbed to a small elevated spot and concealed myself there. From that vantage point, I saw large shadows shifting through the mist between the trees. They were not the elephant, but smaller, yet equally dangerous predators searching for prey. I glanced at my rifle and thought, if they attack first, this could be my final moment. Then, a sharp scent drifted through the air, along with a strange sensation, almost as if the jungle itself was screaming its presence at me. I gathered all my senses and prayed silently that this terrifying night would spare my life. Thus, on the very first night, the Sundarbans revealed its brutal truth. Every moment, every faint sound, every movement of a tree, and every silent gaze of an animal convinced me that this forest was alive and that death could come for me at any second. This was only the beginning. The true horror and the blood-chilling trumpet of the elephant was still to come.
Night had fallen completely, and a terrifying silence spread across the jungle. The air was heavy with moisture and carried a strange scent, almost as if something alive was breathing nearby. I sat in my hiding place, eyes wide open, alert to the faintest sound. The ghostly rustle of grass, the snap of branches, and distant low growls stirred both fear and curiosity within me. I knew there was no turning back now. Danger could appear at any moment, and this merciless jungle would not forgive even a single mistake. I held my rifle firmly against my shoulder and kept my food and water concealed in my bag. With every breath, my pulse quickened. Deep down, I felt that tonight I would witness something I would remember for the rest of my life. In the first few hours, I saw many unsettling sights. Small animals, frightened, hid among tree branches. The gleaming eyes of crocodiles, half buried in soft sand, watched me silently. From time to time, a distant growl drifted through the trees, sending a chill down my spine. I never loosened my grip on the rifle. I knew the elephant or some other predator could appear at any second. Then, in the darkness, I felt the ground tremble. I strained my eyes and saw large shadows moving between the trees. They were elephants, massive, ancient-looking, carrying an overwhelming presence. I held my breath and decided to move forward slowly. With each careful step, I felt more strongly that the jungle was alive and aware of me. Suddenly, a terrifying trumpet split the night. My heart pounded so violently it roared in my ears. I quickly took cover behind a tree to confirm what I was seeing. The elephant's eyes glinted in the darkness, and the sound of its breathing echoed through the forest. This is no ordinary animal, I thought. It is bloodthirsty, and tonight I will face it. I aimed my rifle toward it, but I knew that even a single shot could provoke its fury. So instead, I stepped back and advanced cautiously under cover. The shifting shadows of trees played tricks on my eyes. Sometimes it seemed something was moving when it wasn't. Other times, the snap of a branch sounded like an approaching predator. In the middle of the night, I reached a small clearing. Deer and other animals were running frantically through the grass. But I knew this was only a curtain. The real danger was still hidden. Then, from a distant tree line, I heard the low roar of a tiger. I froze. My heart hammered, my hands locked tightly around the rifle. The tiger's growl sent a ripple of terror through the forest. I knew if both tiger and elephant appeared together, my survival would hang by a thread. A short while later, I moved toward the edge of a narrow stream. Cool water brushed against my legs, and even its gentle flow amplified the tension in the air. Suddenly, from across the water, came the elephant's trumpet again. I hid behind a tree and observed carefully. The elephant was moving with its herd, as if pursuing something with fierce determination. Slowly, I advanced once more. With each careful step, I felt as though the trees, leaves, wind, even the smallest shadow were watching me. Every movement and every sound reinforced the truth. This was no ordinary danger. The looming shadow of the elephant and the distant roar of the tiger made it clear the jungle was alive and death was never far away. In the final hours of the night, I saw their shadows drawing closer, elephant and tiger. I tightened my grip on the rifle, my heart pounding, my eyes fixed on every movement. I knew if they confronted each other, the jungle would witness a blood-soaked clash.
I held my breath and remained hidden, watching. And then it happened. The elephant and the tiger faced off. The two beasts circled each other in a deadly dance. The elephant tried to seize the tiger with its trunk, while the tiger struck fiercely at the elephant's face with its powerful claws. The entire forest seemed to tremble. Trees, grass, water, even the air itself became part of that violent spectacle. I aimed my rifle toward the elephant, but I knew one wrong move could be my last. I whispered a prayer and kept my eyes locked on the scene. The silence of the jungle, the roars of the elephant and tiger, and the thunder of my heartbeat fused into a terrifying and electrifying moment. This night was my first true trial in the Sundarbans. Every second, every motion, every sound drew a thin line between fear and fascination within me. I knew the moments ahead would decide whether I would live or die.
Night had sunk deep into darkness, and an eerie silence blanketed the dense forests of the Sundarbans. The air was thick with humidity and the sharp scent of thorny plants. Shadows played a terrifying game in every direction. I sat high on the wooden platform, my rifle resting against my shoulder, eyes wide and alert to the slightest movement. Every faint sound, every rustle, every distant growl made my heart pound harder. From near the water's edge came the elephant's trumpet, and almost instantly the tiger's roar answered it, shaking me to the core. I knew these were no ordinary animals. They were the true rulers of the jungle, and tonight I was witnessing their confrontation firsthand. I whispered a prayer and carefully leaned forward on the platform to look below. About 15 yards beneath me, the elephant and tiger stood facing each other. The elephant swung its powerful trunk through the air, while the tiger crouched low, muscles coiled, ready to spring. Their eyes flashed like lightning. The forest itself seemed to tremble. The rustling leaves, snapping branches, and distant low growls all bore witness to the bloody drama unfolding below. Suddenly, the tiger launched forward in a fierce leap toward the elephant's trunk. The elephant instantly lifted its trunk high, attempting to seize the tiger mid-air. The tiger fought with all its strength, slashing its claws across the elephant's face and leaving deep marks in its thick skin. I realized that if either one gained full control, blood would flood the ground within seconds. In the distance, the rest of the elephant herd stood watching their leader in tense silence. Their eyes reflected a strange mixture of fear and anticipation. I knew that if even one of them sensed my presence, my life would be in immediate danger. Every gust of wind, every small movement could betray me. The tiger struck again, twisting to avoid the elephant's trunk. The elephant responded by slamming one of its massive feet down, knocking the tiger to the ground. The tiger roared, rolling and trying to rise, but the elephant wrapped it with its trunk and hurled it violently aside. I kept my rifle steady, ready for any sudden turn. One wrong second could mean my death. Then lightning flashed across the sky, and heavy rain began pouring down. The cold sheets of rain and the pounding sound against leaves intensified the terrifying atmosphere. Pressing myself tightly against the tree trunk, I continued watching the brutal struggle below. Each charge, each blow, each roar made my pulse race faster. It felt as though the entire jungle was alive and beating in rhythm with my heart. The elephant lifted the tiger once more and slammed it hard against the ground. The tiger let out a thunderous roar and struggled to stand again, but the elephant brought its massive foot down, pinning it. I knew this was a moment I would never forget. The silence of the forest, the savage strength of elephant and tiger, and the thunder in my chest fused into a scene of pure terror and intensity. The tiger made one final desperate attempt, but the elephant's sheer power and experience overcame it. I slowly lowered the barrel of my rifle toward the elephant. I knew that if I didn't act now, this situation could soon turn against me. I whispered another prayer and pulled the trigger. The bullet struck the elephant in the skull. With a deafening cry, it collapsed to the ground. The rest of the herd panicked and fled into the darkness of the forest. Rain drenched my clothes as I remained seated on the platform, waiting for the storm to ease. Fear, adrenaline, and a strange sense of triumph surged within me. I took a cigarette from my pocket, lit it with trembling hands, and closed my eyes.
but my heartbeat refused to settle. I knew that every moment of this night had been a gamble between life and death, and I had survived only by fate. The deep silence of the night, the distant fading roars, and the looming shadows of the trees made the entire encounter even more haunting. I could feel that the jungle was not merely alive, it was constantly testing me, threatening me. This night marked my first true confrontation with the blood-crazed elephant of the Sundarbans, and deep inside, I knew the moments ahead would be even more dangerous and even more intense.
Night had fallen into its deepest darkness, and an unsettling silence smothered the dense forests of the Sundarbans. The air hung heavy with moisture and the sharp scent of wild thorns. Shadows twisted and shifted in every direction, as if the jungle itself were alive and watching. I sat high on the wooden platform, my rifle braced against my shoulder, eyes wide and fixed on the slightest movement. Every rustle, every snap of a twig, every distant growl sent another surge of adrenaline through my veins. From the riverbank came the piercing trumpet of the elephant. Almost instantly, a tiger's roar answered it, raw and thunderous, shaking me to my core. These were no ordinary beasts, they were the true sovereigns of this wilderness, and tonight I was witnessing their clash firsthand. Leaning forward carefully, I looked down. 15 yards below, the elephant and tiger faced one another in deadly stillness. The elephant swung its massive trunk through the air in warning, while the tiger crouched low, muscles taut, ready to explode into motion. Their eyes flashed like sparks in the darkness. Even the forest seemed to hold its breath. Leaves trembled, branches cracked, the air vibrated with tension. Without warning, the tiger lunged. It soared toward the elephant's trunk in a blur of muscle and fury. The elephant reacted instantly, lifting its trunk to intercept the attack. Claws raked across thick gray skin, leaving deep gashes. The elephant bellowed in rage. I knew that if either creature secured a firm hold, the ground would soon run red. In the distance, the rest of the herd stood frozen, watching their leader with anxious intensity. If even one of them sensed me above, I would not survive the night. The tiger attacked again, twisting to avoid the sweeping trunk. The elephant struck back with brutal force, slamming a massive foot down and knocking the tiger to the earth. The tiger roared defiantly, rolling and rising once more, but the elephant caught it in its trunk and hurled it aside like a rag doll. I tightened my grip on the rifle. One mistake, 1 second too slow, and I would become part of this carnage. Lightning split the sky. Heavy rain crashed down in violent sheets, drenching the forest. Thunder rolled above as the storm amplified the chaos below. Pressed tightly against the tree trunk, I watched the savage duel continue beneath the pounding rain. Each blow, each roar, each charge made my heart slam harder against my ribs. It felt as though the jungle's pulse and mine had become one. The elephant lifted the tiger again and smashed it into the ground with devastating force. The tiger let out a final desperate roar, struggling to rise, but the elephant's enormous foot came down, pinning it. This was the moment. The tiger made one last attempt to break free, but the elephant's strength was overwhelming. Slowly, I lowered my rifle and aimed at the elephant. If I hesitated now, the balance could shift and I would not be spared. I whispered a final prayer and squeezed the trigger. The gunshot shattered the night. The bullet struck true. The elephant screamed, a sound so powerful it seemed to tear through the storm itself before collapsing heavily to the ground. The remaining herd scattered in panic, vanishing into the rain-soaked darkness. Rain poured over me as I remained seated on the platform, breathing hard, waiting for the storm to calm. Fear, exhaustion, adrenaline, and a strange, hollow triumph flooded through me. With trembling fingers, I lit a cigarette. Even as I closed my eyes, my heartbeat refused to slow. Every second of this night had been a wager between life and death, and I had survived by the thinnest margin. The silence that followed was heavier than before. The fading echoes of roars, the shifting shadows of towering trees, the scent of rain and blood all lingered in the air. This was my first true confrontation with the blood-crazed elephant of the Sundarbans, and deep within me,
I knew this jungle was far from finished with me.
In the stillness of the night, as the last drops of rain fell to the earth, I remained seated on the platform, trying to steady my heartbeat. Every corner of the jungle felt electric and mysterious. The dense branches overhead, the faint ripples of water nearby, and distant low growls combined to create an atmosphere thick with tension. I knew that after tonight, my life would never be the same. After the bloody confrontation, I realized the jungle had taught me a new kind of fear, one born of its raw power, its savagery, and its mystery. The elephant lay motionless on the ground, yet the forest around it remained alive and dangerous. When the rest of the herd had fled, an unnatural silence settled over the jungle. But even that silence felt threatening, as if the forest itself stood on guard. I began climbing down carefully, but with every step my heart pounded harder. Every rustling leaf, every snapping twig, every faint ripple of water warned me that the jungle had not truly fallen quiet. It felt as though everything, the fish in the river, the trees, the animals, was hiding some secret. Danger lurked within every shadow, and I moved with extreme caution. From somewhere near a tree trunk came the soft hiss of a snake. I turned my rifle toward the sound, but it faded into silence just as quickly. In that moment, I felt that every plant, every leaf, every branch was asserting its presence. My breathing grew heavier, my pulse like a dangerous rhythm in my chest. When I finally reached the ground, I stepped closer to the elephant's body. Its massive eyes were now closed, yet somehow it still seemed to embody the wild force of the jungle. I was reminded that the power of the natural world is far beyond human understanding. In every movement, every sound, there was a threat that no man could fully control. I looked around at the remains of the battle. Blood stained the earth. With each step, I sensed that the jungle's savagery and mystery were still very much alive. I whispered a prayer, asking Allah to keep me safe, for this forest could claim a life in an instant. What I had witnessed tonight was not merely a fight between an elephant and a tiger. It was a glimpse into the brutal truth of the wilderness, a reality that could terrify even the bravest hunter. I took a bottle of water from my bag and drank slowly. The dampness of the rain clung to my face. Strangely, that cold air and heavy atmosphere strengthened my resolve. I realized that the risk I had taken tonight was not only a test of courage, but a lesson. In the jungle, every movement, every decision, every second can mean the difference between life and death. Now I had to return to the rest house, but the path back was no easier. With each step, it felt as though the forest moved around me. The rustling leaves, the soft current of the water, the cracking branches, all combined into a scene of quiet suspense. The elephant's death had not ended the danger. It had only revealed a small part of the jungle's mysterious and deadly world. I tightened my grip on the rifle slung over my shoulder. Any movement, any sound could still threaten my life. What I had experienced tonight was not just a hunt. It was an encounter with the jungle's true nature. The elephant, the tiger, the predators of this land, all of them were beyond human control. In this place, life and death exist side by side. As I neared the rest house, I felt I had not only killed a rogue elephant, but had also witnessed a fragment of the jungle's hidden power. Abdullah Manji and his companions stared at me in astonishment when I returned. I set down my rifle and bag, breathing in the cool, rain-soaked air, knowing that the struggle between life and death I had witnessed tonight would be etched in my memory forever. Stepping out of the darkness and toward the rest house, I still felt the jungle watching me. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound whispered a secret story. I understood then that the elephant and the tiger had not only tested my courage, they had reminded me that man remains small before the force of nature. Inside, I removed my rain-soaked clothes and sat near the fire, slowly calming my racing heart. I knew that tonight I had not only slain a bloodthirsty elephant, I had confronted the raw mystery, danger, and savagery of the wild itself. And this was not just a successful hunt. It was a haunting,
unforgettable story, one that would stay with me for the rest of my life.